What a strange time to be alive. What a weird world we live in that we're aware of. Not likely the real world at all, but an illusion, a dream of what the world is, fed by many streams, narratives, woven together like a matrix, and each of our personalities springing forth from this tapestry. And we make too much of it. We take it too seriously. We take ourselves too seriously. That's not a judgment. It's an assessment, because it inhibits us from enjoying the play, the lila. The drama of it is like a tempestuous sea, and we choke and half drown most of the time. We bob around on this intersection between sky and water, freedom and constraint, grasping, holding on with the limited capacity of the ego, meanwhile ignoring that we have both gills and wings. We are creatures of both the air and the sea, and the land as well. We have unlimited capacity and dominion over our own realities, because we are not the thing that we think we are. We are the sky, we are the sea, we are the land. Yes, that sounds vague and poetic, but it's actual. We think we are the characters that are encapsulated in the story, but we're not. We're the observer of the character. We are the observer of the story. And this is something we can remember and experience. It's not something that we have to wait for death to reveal to us. I experienced this awareness of being the observer through practice, when I intentionally stop the stream of thoughts, when I intentionally stop the narrative, the participating in the drama. I know myself to be the observer, and not any of the traits or characteristics that I've associated myself with. The story is compelling and fascinating, and yet we allow ourselves to be tortured by it as well. It's funny how it dawns on me sometimes that spirit, that the watcher could have a sort of crassness of actually not giving a fuck about any of it. The way that we think that God might. This watcher doesn't suffer. In fact, it even enjoys our suffering. It enjoys the engagement. When we stop identifying with the story and we remember that we are the observer, the watcher, we can even enjoy the suffering. The thing is, the suffering doesn't last when we look at it from that perspective. It's a refreshing contrast. It's an interesting juxtaposition of our natural state of awareness, which is enthusiasm, which is enjoyment. The contrast, the suffering, feels like pulling back the string of a bow. There's a tension in it. The observer knows that eventually we'll have to release that tension. And in that release will be this flood of joy, of enthusiasm, that punctuates our experience. Both extremes are waves that we ride, creative impulses. It is somewhat disorienting to return to the awareness of being the impartial observer, while also still retaining that awareness of the character in the game, in the play. It's not easy to hold both perspectives. And from my experience, what happens is that the character starts to dissolve, lose some of its commitment to holding together that story. It starts to disregard the rules of the game. For most people, this would seem appealing until they actually try and do it. It is appealing because there's an infusion of awareness. There's access to more of everything. But then the container feels like it might burst or overflow. And so the container has to expand. The persona has to expand. I think right now our world is trying to expand because the collective, the planet, is opening more and more to this deeper truth, the source of being, the observer behind the scenery. But as I say, difficult to hold awareness of both selves. I don't think it's beyond our capacity, but it's not a familiar, normal capacity at this point. It's new for many of us. In previous times, maybe it was something that certain people were attributed with the ability to commune with the divine, and there would be ceremony and ritual around that. There would be a religious or metaphoric framework of symbols that would help, that would make it easier. Whereas now we have a vast sea of symbols and metaphors and stories, and everything's kind of diluted and suspect. It's difficult to believe in anything. I think this dissolving is also what's allowing us to access this observer, which could be called God, a personal God, the monad, spirit. It's a lot of words for it now. But also the responsibility is on the individual instead of a religious framework to make sense of that. And how do we function in the world when we have this awareness of this broader perspective? I can say firsthand that observing much of mundane reality, I want to not participate in it. It seems ridiculous. It seems too small. It seems boring and stupid. Instead, I have visions of a new world, a society of demigods, where people are still playing in the theater of manifestation, but it's taking into account a much larger self, a self with greater capacities. So this larger self that I see myself growing into, it actually has very little patience for the smallness that is being outgrown. And there is feelings of, well, let's just wipe the old away. Because there's a fearlessness, there's a knowing of one's eternal nature. The observer knows timelessness, knows eternity, and when focused there, has a tremendous amount of patience. However, desire pulls that observer into the world of time and space and becomes impatient, becomes quite fierce, becomes intense, becomes angry and lusty and loving and all of these things quite intensely, but descent into matter, the ebb and flow of creation. From this place, I'm not afraid even of war. From every point of consciousness, which reflects the whole, there is the opportunity to bring forth whatever is necessary. And sometimes what is necessary is strength and power and ruthlessness. It's not even malicious. It's the talons of the eagle grabbing the salmon, ripping the flesh to feed its babies. It's not hatred. That's not rage. It's love. It's lust for life. It's passion. Sometimes the world becomes too rigid and old, and it needs to be refreshed. I think there's many ways of doing this. If we're wise, we recognize it, and we surrender and we sacrifice consciously. When we do that, it's much less brutal. When we resist that, it often ends up in horror. I think that some of this idea of sacrificing to the gods is a recognition of this. Because we've lost our connection with the gods culturally, we've distanced ourselves from this vitalizing force. We've disconnected from the power of renewal, of nature's cycles. And because of that, structures have become old and dead. And there's fires beneath the rocks waiting to bubble up, on the verge of exploding. There's also been this attempt to put out the fires with a yin approach, misplaced and infantilizing, and that's caused a very swampy putrefaction, a bad fermentation. It's exacerbated disease, and the pendulum is swinging. Its natural force can only be held back for so long. And the more it's pulled back, the bigger the release, the bigger the explosion, the greater the destruction. I'm not sure how this all makes sense, but this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm observing when I walk through my town and neighborhoods. I feel this sense of apathy, almost a longing for destruction and renewal. I feel a calling within me to commit violence. I've never been somebody that was interested in that, and yet it's being evoked in me. I think I do respond to the energies. I feel them. I'm sensitive to them. However, my wisdom says be proactive and creative. Use the intellect. Use the heart. Use the intuition to create a higher octave response. Put the anger into the art. Put the destruction into a framework of wisdom. How can we recognize the part of ourself that wants to be sacrificed without going into it blindly, flailing about with ignorance? How can we experience a catharsis in a more intelligent way? Because if we can move through this time with less casualty, then the sooner we can get to enjoy the benefits of that rebirth. The sooner we can achieve an increased degree of utopia, the next stage of refinement of our collective consciousness, manifesting in time and space. I think this leap that we're taking right now is hugely important. And it should both excite us and terrify us if the purpose of that emotion is a quickening, is a calling to sharpness and focus and immediacy. I think we desire this. The observer, the witness, is quite dreamy. You might even say easygoing, unbothered. There is an enjoyment in the commitment to physical aliveness. And this is what suffering does. This is what pain does. This is what hunger does. Quickens us. All the pleasurable things lull us back into a sleepy kind of dreaminess, an apathy, a dissolution. This is essentially the yin force that might suggest why the devil could be female. That everything that we think of as good is pushing spirit into this world taking action, defining things, creating structures, the will to good. Whereas the female, especially in its negative form, dissolves, consumes, and destroys. That's why we need balance of these polarities. And then to be operating in their right place, we need to understand truly from an apolitical perspective, a metaphysical, intellectual understanding of this dynamic. I believe it's been co-opted, and even that fits into the grand design where things are ruined so that they can be reestablished with greater intensity and clarity. If we forget why something's important, then we'll be taught how important it is. Why it is important that the man is the head of the household. That's his role. He creates the structure and the leadership. It doesn't mean that the woman is less important, but her role is not in leadership. She's not the tip of the spear. She's not the driver of the car. She carries the cargo. She nourishes the inhabitants. She has a role. It's not less important. It's just not meant to lead. It's not meant to make the decisions. It doesn't have the same capacity for that action. It's too cumbersome. It's too unwieldy. It's too lacking in integrity. It's too easily influenced. It has poor boundaries. It's susceptible to delusion and whim. It's too emotional. It's too indulgent. It's too impractical. However, given direction and containment, it fulfills its role. And joyfully. It's humorous to me that I've come to this awareness and conclusion out of dysfunction. From a family where that was inverted, resulting in me, this is what I believe, being a gay man because of confusion, because of lack of direction and healthy role models. No culture around me that was providing healthy guidance. And out of that dysfunction, failure, disease, suffering, misery. But because of my clarification and interest in the truth, out of my suffering and pain, a quickening to right the wrongs, to respond and be responsible, to rebuild the world. This requires fighting against the ennui, the inertia, the apathy, the pain, all of these things, pulling myself out of that mire. And it's something that I've identified and gotten clearer and clearer about, no one has held my hand on this, no one has shown me this. This is a conclusion that I've come to, and then I've found confirmation in the world, and I've seen the patterns. I've joined the dots. And the truth of it is, I'm furious that it's gotten to this. That the world is full of cowards and weak men and narcissistic women. I wonder how it got so bad. How did it get to this place? I have resentment that I should carry it. I feel like the people who have benefited have failed me. I myself could also retreat, take the easy way. There's no demand that I do this work, but I feel like it's the right thing. As the situations become clearer to me, as I've considered it, as I've done my work, I feel more and more compelled to participate and take action. Meanwhile, feeling a greater pull from my spiritual practice to leave this world, to see how flimsy it is. So I wonder why. Why do I want to participate? Why do I want to fix the world? Even recognizing that it may not be about fixing it, that it may be part of grand cycles. So it's a choice. It's a choice to participate and engage. And again, I wonder why. Why would I want to do such a thing? I don't really know. And I imagine that I won't know until after I've committed to following this trail of breadcrumbs, this whispering of intuition. Even the song and dance that rage, anger, and hatred inspires, like a battle cry, like a bloodlust, and yet some belief that that too comes from God.